Hey guys, how you doing? Uncle Steph here. So the top two programming languages for startups. When you're starting up a new business, you got an idea for an app of some type, web app or mobile app. What is the best choice of languages? You got many languages out there, right? You got PHP, you got Ruby. You don't want to use Ruby. You got C#, you got Java, you got Python, you got JavaScript, and you got others. So which language should you choose for startups? And I'll give you a little bit more detail about that whole process. So let me cut to the chase. Number one is PHP for the backend. And number two is Swift for mobile app development, again, for startups. So when it comes to web apps, of course, you're going to be using HTML and CSS because there's no other choice there. So on the server side, though, you have many choices. You got PHP. You got C#, you got Java, you got Ruby, don't use Ruby, you got Perl, you got Python, you got JavaScript, you got so many. And it can be very difficult for people to choose one language from the other. All things being equal, I choose PHP because it's fast, it's nimble, it's got a deep infrastructure, it's got a great couple of MVC frameworks like Symfony and Laravel. It's easy to use, it's dependable, it's fairly efficient. It's pretty good in that respect. Now, people would argue, well, no, maybe you should use Python, maybe you should use JavaScript. JavaScript would be my second choice for server-side development in the web app space. I wouldn't be using, generally speaking, C# or Java. Definitely not going to be using Ruby because I don't want to lose my hair. So that is my number one choice for server-side programming. It's PHP because it overall, all things considered, I think it's best. That being said, caveat, when you're developing any software, there's a lot of considerations in terms of what the particular software has to do, the infrastructure you might be working with, yada, yada, yada. So you might find that C# might be a better choice in certain circumstances. Or in other circumstances, it could be Python. I can't think of a circumstance it would be Ruby, but you never know. So that being said, so I'm just giving a quick blanket statement here. All things being equal, I choose PHP. I've done apps in C#.NET. I've done apps, lots of apps in Java, Java JSP, Service, Pojos. Done several PHP. I haven't done any, well, I did an MVP. I did an MVP, minimum viable product with Ruby back in the day. Command line, not web app. So it was usable there. Again, all things being equal. You want light, nimble, and fast. The other type of startup app that you typically see is the mobile app. Now, for mobile development, we got iOS and we got Android. So for iOS, you got Objective-C, the programming language, or Swift, the programming language. For Android, you got Java and you got Kotlin, of course. Generally speaking, when I'm building a mobile app, my first choice is to use a cross-platform solution. I've talked about this forever, whether it be a PWA, which is Progressive Web App, or even a simple responsive website may be enough depending on the site, depending on the application. Or you can use a cross-platform solution like a Flutter or React. Microsoft has Xamarin or something called Maui. My first choice for mobile is cross-platform. But there are times when you want to use native because you need to access certain features you may not be able to access through cross-platform solutions, or maybe you just need the raw speed. In that case, I would go with Swift. Why Swift? Well, you're not going to be building any Android apps with Swift, but typically the money is in iOS. Why? Because typically iPhone users spend more than Android users. So ultimately, again, depends on the specifics of the business that you're getting into. I like to go where the money is, right? So I would develop, if I had to go native, and I'm assuming I'm on a tight budget here, and I can't go cross-platform, I would be going iOS, which means Swift. So let me end this video with the basic rules of developing a startup app. I've done this a few times. So rule number one, 3 rules. Rule number one, you want to be fast. So the MVP, the minimum viable product, your first iteration, should only express the top core functionality that you want to express in the app. Don't get caught up in details in terms of features. Many features that you think are important may in fact be totally useless once you go to production. So don't waste your time on too many features trying to over-engineer it. Just get the key functionality up and running so you can get response from your audience. Point number 2, don't worry about scaling. 99% of apps you will never have to be concerned about scale. This is typically primarily a web app thing in terms of scaling, but when you're doing your MVPs, don't even think about scaling. Servers are so powerful these days. App engines are so powerful and efficient these days. That's not an issue. Don't worry about scaling. That's the last thing you should be concerned about. I was once consulted by a startup, and the people doing the startup had no experience actually developing startups, and they made the fatal mistake of investing a lot of resources into scale. It's just silly. And of course, they ran out of money, went bankrupt, and never worked out. And the third point, which may not be obvious to you, be sure that the app, whether it be web or mobile native, be sure the app looks really cool. Make sure it looks really cool. People will judge your app based on how good it looks. I know it sounds superficial and kind of silly, but trust me, we're humans. Our brains, our lizard brains, which controls our emotional self. I'm getting to a point here. Give it a second. Our lizard brains put a lot of energy into processing visual data. As such, it stands to reason that it's going to put a lot of weight on. It's going to pay much more consideration to what it sees versus anything else. So if you have an app, it better look pro, it better look slick. When people look at your app, they better go, hey, this is pretty cool. Because if it looks like crap, you're going to get no buy-in and you're going to fail. So remember the 3 rules. Be fast, get the MVP out, don't get overloaded with features. Number 2, don't worry about scaling. 99% of apps will never need it anyway. And number 3, be sure the app is aesthetic. I'm Uncle Steph. I mentor people in software development, the business of development. I've been writing code since the 90s professionally. I'm a multiple founder. StudioWeb is my last one, which is an interactive training platform that a lot of schools use. And I mentor people in all these different things. I have my code mentoring program at unclesteph.com. And I'm about to release my new mentoring program, which is business entrepreneurship oriented. That's coming out pretty soon. I'm recording this January 11th. I figure late January, it should be up and running. And I'm actually starting a new show. Let me know in the comments below. I think I'm going to call it Entrepreneur Audit, where basically on video, I will audit your business idea and give you some free advice, basically a free consult with me. But you're going to be on my channel, my other channel, which is a business channel. And I might be roasting you guys just a little bit. It's got to be entertaining, right? All right. Thanks for watching. Live long and profit.